Krishna.
Alright, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 14. Chapters entitled Questions by Vidura. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. While speaking thus, Vidura, whose personal character was esteemed by respectable persons, was insulted by Duryodhan, who was swollen with anger and whose lips were trembling. Duryodhan was in company with Karna, his younger brothers, and his maternal uncle Sakuni. Purport. It is said that giving good counsel to a foolish person causes a fool to become angry, just as feeding milk to a snake only increases its venomous poison. Saint Vidura was so honourable that his character was looked up to by all respectable persons. But Duryodhan was so foolish that he dared to insult Vidura. This was due to his bad association with Sakuni, his maternal uncle, as well as with his friend Karna, who always encouraged Duryodhan in his nefarious acts.
Interesting statement. It is said that giving good counsel to a foolish person causes the fool to become angry.
It's almost like, because we kind of know when we're doing wrong and right, and when you're doing wrong, you don't necessarily want someone to remind you, if that makes, it just gets you frustrated, like, go away, don't tell,
I guess an example is like Ravana, when Vibhishan was trying to give him good counsel, but he just became more and more angry, and Kamsa also, could not really hear. Text 15. Who asked him to come here, this son of a kept mistress? So this is what Duryodhana is saying to Vidura.
His uncle.
He is so crooked that he spies in the interest of the enemy against those on whose support he has grown up. Toss him out of the palace immediately and leave him with only his breath. Wow.
That's harsh.
When getting married, the Kshatriya kings would take on several other youthful girls along with the married princess. These girl attendants of the king were known as dasis, or attendant mistresses. By intimate association with the king, the dasis would get sons. Such sons were called dasi putras. They had no claim to a royal position, but they would get maintenance and other facilities just like princes. Vidura was the son of such a dasi, and he was thus not counted amongst the Kshatriyas. King Dhritarashtra was very affectionate toward his younger dasi putra brother Vidura, and Vidura was a great friend and philosophical advisor to Dhritarashtra. Duryodhana knew very well that Vidura was a great soul and well-wisher, but unfortunately he used strong words to hurt his innocent uncle. Duryodhana not only attacked Vidura's birth, but also called him an infidel, because he seemed to support the cause of Yudhisthira, whom Duryodhana considered his enemy. He desired that Vidura be immediately put out of the palace and deprived of all his possessions. If possible, he would have liked him caned. He would have liked him caned until he was left with nothing but his breath. He charged that Vidura was a spy of the Pandavas because he advised King Dhritarashtra in their favor. Such is the situation of palace life. Interesting, considering what's going on in the palace at the moment. And the intricacies of diplomacy, that even a faultless person like Vidura could be charged with something abominable and punished. Vidura was struck with wonder at such unexpected behavior from his nephew Duryodhana, and before anything actually happened, he decided to leave the palace for good. So very interesting points here. Of course, Duryodhana showing the way that we shouldn't treat elders, seniors, or saintly people. And of course, he suffers for it in the end. Also, we can see that Vidura was offended and upset, but he just left because he could see that there isn't really much point in being here if people aren't interested. And so I don't think he kind of ran because he was afraid of getting caned or punished. I think he just left because he realized that no one here was listening, and he didn't really want to be around in the aftermath that was going to manifest. So, yeah, interesting. Any points?
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting because, like you said, what's that saying? Like, just because you know you're right, you know, like you don't need to pursue the wrong. You can be renounced, like Vidura, and just let it go.
Yeah, I don't know the saying, but yeah, just because you know you're right doesn't mean you have to act wrong in order to try to prove it.
Yeah, and there's greater strength in letting go. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. There's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when you're naturally just renouncing it, like, okay, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that requires, as Vidura has, a great level of faith, and he has very strong spiritual foundation to have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have that, then you're no better than the other person, because you're going to hold on to the fighting for this, fighting for that, because that's all you have, the externals, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it requires a great, because as it will go on to, actually I just saw in the next verse, it basically it's the hand of God anyway. And so the other person, which in this case is Vidura, has to see, well, why are you shaking it up? What's going on? Because everyone has their own path. But yeah, it's a real faith tester.
So let's see what it says in the next verse.
Yes, verse 16. Thus, being pierced by arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. So he's seen the hand of God, I'm saying, you know?
Well, he's seen, yeah.
Proper. A pure devotee of the Lord is never perturbed by an awkward position created by the external energy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 3:27 it is stated, Prakriti kriyamana ni guna kamani sarvasa ahankara vimud atma kartaham iti manyate. A conditioned soul is absorbed in material existence under the influence of different modes of external energy. Absorbed in the false ego, he thinks that he is doing everything by himself. The external energy of the Lord, the material energy, is fully under the control of the Supreme Lord, and the conditioned soul is fully under the grip of the external energy. Therefore, the conditioned soul is fully under the control of the law of the Lord. But due to illusion only, he thinks himself independent in his activities. Duryodhana was acting under such influence of the external nature, by which he would be vanquished at the ultimate end. He could not accept the sound advice of Vidura, but on the contrary, he insulted that great soul who was the well-wisher of his whole family. Vidura could understand this because he was a pure devotee of the Lord. In spite of being very strongly insulted by Duryodhana's words, Vidura could see that Duryodhana, under the influence of Maya, of the external energy, was making progress on the path toward his own ruination. He therefore considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Yet he also saw how the internal energy of the Lord helped him in that particular situation. A devotee is always in a renounced temperament. That's interesting. It's always in a renounced temperament. Attracted by the because the worldly attractions, because the worldly attractions can never satisfy him. Vidura was never attracted by the royal palace of his brother. He was always ready to leave the place and devote himself completely to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Now he got the opportunity by the grace of Duryodhana, And instead of being sorry at the strong words of insult, he thanked him from within, because it gave him the chance to live alone in a holy place and fully engage in the devotional service of the Lord. The word gata viata, without being sorry, is significant here, because Vidura was relieved from the tribulations which trouble every man entangled in material activities. He therefore thought that there was no need to defend his brother with his bow, because his brother was meant for ruination. Thus he left the palace before Duryodhana could act. Maya, the supreme energy of the Lord, acted here both internally and externally.
Thoughts?
Yeah, it's not easy though, because you can understand that part of you might say, let me just sort out Duryodhana a little bit and then I'll go. I think it takes a big man or a woman to just say, anyway, whatever. Because the other thing is, as we know, Krishna and time, they act when it's appropriate. So it's that, I think, also adds to that feeling of injustice, because you think, well, when are you going to sort them out? You know, like Duryodhana or people like that could have a reign of 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years, and then they get their just desserts. And so then it's also another test for us, like, oh, do I just go, understanding this knowledge, or then I need to sort them out myself? But if you sort them out yourself, that means you think you're the doer and you're the justice giver and all, you know? That's intricate.
Yeah, I guess you need to see if it is your place or if it's not your place. So, is it your duty or not your duty or responsibility?
Yes.
And that's best realized not by maybe the frailties of our own mind, but through good counsel, which a fool cannot hear from good counsel. He'll take counsel, but from other fools. So like that. But yeah, it's a very interesting scenario. And that the point I was thinking was that how it says that the external energy was acting as supreme. And here we see that, we hear from time to time how providence was the will of providence. So it means the external energy just had to act in a certain way. So in this way, Vidura was able to see that the external energy had covered both these personalities, and there wasn't really much that he could do. So he just needed to step away from the situation. And in that way, he took shelter of the spiritual energy, and he just thought, okay, so I would just go and hear from Maitreya about Krishna like that. Okay, text 17. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantages of the pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapur, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimages, which are the Lord's lotus feet. With a desire to gain a high order of pious life, he traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. So he went for pilgrimage. Purport. Vidura was undoubtedly a highly elevated and pious soul. Otherwise, he would not have taken his birth in the Kaurava family. To have high parentage, to possess wealth, to be highly learned, and to have great personal beauty are all due to past pious acts. But such pious possessions are not sufficient for obtaining the grace of the Lord and being engaged in his transcendental loving service. Interesting point. Vidura considered himself less pious, and therefore he decided to travel to all the great places of pilgrimage in the world in order to achieve greater piety and advance nearer to the Lord. At that time, Lord Krishna was personally present in the world, and Vidura could have at once approached him directly, but he did not do so because he was not sufficiently freed from sin. Interesting. One cannot be 100% devoted to the Lord unless and until he is completely free from all effects of sin. Vidura was conscious that by the association of the diplomatic Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, interesting, he had lost his piety and was therefore not fit to associate at once with the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita, this is confirmed in the following verse. Yesham twantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moham nirmukta bhajante mam dritavrataha. Persons who are sinful asuras like Kamsa and Jarasandha cannot think of Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth. Only those who are pure devotees, those who follow the regulative principles of religious life as prescribed in the scriptures, are able to engage themselves in karma yoga and then jnana yoga, and thereafter by pure meditation can understand pure consciousness. When God consciousness is developed, one can take advantage of the association of pure devotees. Shan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nisheshavanat. Nishevanat. One is able to associate with the Lord even during the existence of this life.
Places of pilgrimage are meant for eradicating the sins of the pilgrims, and they are distributed all over the universe just to give facility to all concerned for attaining pure existence and God realization. One should not be satisfied, however, merely by visiting the places of pilgrimage and performing one's prescribed duties. He should be eager to meet the great souls who are already there, engaged in the service of the Lord. In each and every place of pilgrimage, the Lord is present in his various transcendental forms.
These forms are called archamurtis, or forms of the Lord which can be easily appreciated by the common man. The Lord is transcendental to our mundane senses. He cannot be seen with our present eyes, nor can he be heard with our present ears. To the degree that we have entered into the service of the Lord, to that proportion, our lives are freed from sins. We can perceive the Lord. Even though we are not free from sins, the Lord is kind enough to allow us the facility of seeing him in his archamurtis in the temple. The Lord is all-powerful, and therefore he is able to accept our service by presentation of his archa form. No one, therefore, should foolishly think the archa in the temple to be an idol. Such an archamurti is not an idol, but the Lord himself. And to the proportion that one is free from sin, he is able to know the significance of the archamurti. The guidance of a pure devotee is therefore always required.
In the land of Bharatvarsh, there are many hundreds and thousands of places of pilgrimage distributed all over the country, and by traditional practice, the common man visits such holy places during all seasons of the year. Some of the archer representations of the Lord situated in different places of pilgrimage are mentioned herewith. The Lord is present at Mathura, the birthplace of Lord Krishna. As Adikesha, the Lord is present at Puri. Orissa as Lord Jagannath, also known as Purushottam. He is present at Allahabad, Prayag as Bindu Madhava. At Mandara Hill, he is present as Madhusudam. In the Anandaranya, he is known as Vasudev, Padmanabh and Janardhan. At Vishnu Kanchi, he is known as Vishnu, and at Mayapur, he is known as Hari. There are billions and millions of such archer forms of the Lord distributed all over the universe. All these archamurtis are summarized in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the following words: Savatra Prakash Tandra Bhakte Sukadite Jagatera Adharma Nasi Dharma Stapite. The Lord has so distributed himself all over the universe just to give pleasure to the devotees, to give the common man facility to eradicate his sins, and to establish religious principles in the world.
Wow. So glories to the archamurti form, the deity form.
Yes.
And the Lord expands himself all over the universe so that the common man can approach the Lord and begin the process of devotional service. Of course, when one achieves the perfected platform, one may still also worship the deity, but with a completely different mentality and vision also. So
and different reciprocation as well.
Yeah. Reciprocation from the deity, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yatam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajami aham. So as all approach me, I reward them accordingly. So like that. Okay. How are we doing for time? One more?
Okay.
Okay, so text 18. He began to travel alone, thinking only of Krishna, through various holy places like Ayodhya, Dwarka, and Mathura. He traveled where the grove, hill, orchard, river, and lake are all pure and sinless, and where the forms of the unlimited decorate the temples. Thus he performed the pilgrim's progress. Purport. These archa forms of the Lord may be considered idols by the atheists, but that does not matter for persons like Vidura or his many other servants. The forms of the Lord are mentioned here as Anantalinga. Such forms of the Lord have unlimited potency, the same as that of the Lord himself. There is no difference between the potencies of the archa and those of the personal forms of the Lord. The example of the post box and the post office may be applied here. The little post boxes distributed all over the city have the same potency as the postal system in general. The duty of the post office is to carry letters from one place to another. If one puts letters in the post boxes authorized by the General Post Office, the function of carrying letters is performed without a doubt. Similarly, the Archa Murti can also deliver the same unlimited potency of the Lord as when he is personally present. That's very powerful. Vidura therefore could see nothing but Krishna in the different Archa forms, and ultimately he was able to realize Krishna alone and nothing else. Let's read one more.
Text 19. While so traversing the earth, he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places, although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hairdressing nor a bed on which to lie. Thus he was always unseen by his various relatives. Purport. The first and foremost duty of a pilgrim is to satisfy the Supreme Lord Hari. While travelling as a pilgrim, one should not be worried about pleasing society. There is no need to depend on social formalities, occupation, or dress. One should remain always absorbed in the function of pleasing the Lord. Thus sanctified by thought and action, one is able to realize the Supreme Lord by the process of a pilgrim's journey.
Pilgrim's journey. That's the name of, that's what Krishna Dharmaprabhu and Sri Chintamani Mataji name that they gave for their book of the third canto, A Pilgrim's Journey, which, by the way, I highly recommend. Amazing, amazing books. Should we stop there or read one more?
Read one more if you want.
Okay.
Let's go on a pilgrim's journey.
All right. Thus, when he was in the land of Bharatvarsh, traveling to all the places of pilgrimage, he visited Prabhashakshetra. At that time, Maharaj Yudhisthira was the emperor and held the world under one military strength and one flag. So that's interesting. So that means he had been traveling for quite some time, because by the time he reached Prabhashakshetra, King Yudhisthira was the king. But when he left, King Yudhisthira definitely was not the king. So, interesting. More than 5,000 years ago, while Saint Vidura was traveling the earth as a pilgrim, India was known as Bharatvarsh, as it is known even today. The history of the world cannot give any systematic account for more than 3,000 years into the past. But before that, the whole world was under the flag and military strength of Maharaj Yudhisthira, who was the emperor of the world. At present, there are hundreds and thousands of flags flapping in the United Nations. But during the time of Vidura, there was, by the grace of Ajita, Lord Krishna, only one flag. The nations of the world are very eager to again have one state under one flag, but for this they must seek the favor of Lord Krishna, who alone can help us become one worldwide nation. Wow. One worldwide nation under the banner or under the flag of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so maybe we conclude there. Thank you all very much for tuning in. So we hope to see you next time. A reminder, this Saturday coming is, well, actually, I guess by the time they hear this.
Yeah, because this will go out next Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay, so.
So just have a lovely day.
Gaur Purnim coming up, 28th of March. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.